Only one player in NBA history has ever finished a season shooting over 50% from the field, over 50% from three, and 100% from the free throw line. It wasn't Kevin Durant. It wasn't Stephen Curry, not even Larry Bird. It was someone you probably never expected, someone who didn't even know he was autistic at the time. That man was Tony Snell, a quiet, unassuming NBA role player. No MVPs, no highlight reels, no stardom, but in the 2020-21 season, he quietly achieved what legends never did. And just years later, while seeking answers for his son's developmental needs, Snell discovered he had autism himself, an identity he carried his entire career unknowingly. Stay with us as we uncover the astonishing, overlooked story of Tony Snell, the man who made basketball history in silence and is now rewriting what it means to win both on and off the court. Tony Snell never sought the spotlight. He wasn't the type to pound his chest after a three-pointer or stare down opponents after a dunk. For years, he quietly moved between NBA teams, Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, doing his job with discipline and humility. He defended hard, knocked down open shots, followed the game plan, and avoided controversy. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he wasn't the player reporters rushed to interview after games. And yet, in the 2020-21 season with the Atlanta Hawks, Tony Snell accomplished something that no NBA superstar, not Steph Curry, not Kevin Durant, not Klay Thompson, has ever done. 50-50-100 season, he shot over 50% from the field, over 50% from the free throw line, and a perfect 100% from the free throw line. It wasn't a statistical fluke. It was the result of focus, repetition, and an unshakable work ethic. But Tony's story didn't end with numbers. In fact, it was just beginning years later. While taking his young son for developmental evaluations, doctors noticed something familiar in Tony's own behavior. They gently suggested he get tested too. At age 31, after almost a decade in the NBA, Tony Snell was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And suddenly, the silence, the intense focus, the need for structure, it all clicked into place. The routines weren't just habits, they were survival. The quiet wasn't disinterest, it was how he processed the world. Tony's story isn't just about stats anymore. It's about understanding, acceptance, and transformation. It's about a man who didn't need to shout to be great, he just needed to be seen. And now, the world finally is! Tony Snell was never supposed to be a headline. He didn't grow up in a basketball powerhouse town or attend elite camps. He was born in Watts, California, a neighborhood often defined by struggle, a place where survival came before dreams. Raised by a single mother who juggled work, parenting, and constant worry, Tony and his sister were taught discipline early. His mother's mission was simple: keep them safe, keep them focused, and keep them away from the streets. Tony barely spoke. Teachers assumed he was shy. Coaches thought he lacked intensity. But behind the silence was a boy who saw the world differently. In the chaos of life, basketball gave him order. Repetition became meditation. Shooting became language. The gym was his sanctuary. He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the flashiest, but no one worked like him. He would recreate the same motion 1,000 times, not chasing perfection for praise, but for peace. Eventually, he found his path to New Mexico, where his game grew louder even if his voice didn't. Scouts took notice. In 2013, the Chicago Bulls selected him 20th overall in the NBA draft. Over the next decade, he moved from team to team. Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, carving out a role as a sharpshooting specialist and dependable defender. But throughout that entire journey, something deeper was at play. A truth no one, not even Tony, fully understood. The quiet wasn't confusion. The repetition wasn't habit. It was structure. It was clarity. He was living with undiagnosed autism, navigating professional sports while masking an identity he didn't yet have a name for. The very thing that made him different was also what made him elite. Tony Snell's basketball career was defined defined not by flashy headlines or highlight reel plays, but by a steady rhythm of quiet excellence. He wasn't the loudest voice in the locker room, nor the most animated presence on the court, but he was always dependable. Coaches trusted him, teammates respected him, and fans who truly watched the game saw a player who valued efficiency over attention. In the 2020-21 NBA season, while playing for the Atlanta Hawks, Snell etched his name into the record books by accomplishing something no one else ever had, shooting over 50% from the field, over 50% from three-point range, and 100% from the free throw line. He didn't chase this milestone, it came as a byproduct of consistency, preparation, and focus. Years later, Tony's world shifted again, not on the court, but at home. When his young son was diagnosed with autism, Snell began recognizing familiar traits: the stillness, the repetition, the laser-like focus. It felt personal, so he sought answers. And at age 31, after a decade in the NBA, Tony Snell was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. That moment became a turning point. His reserved personality, strict routines, and near-obsessive attention to detail all made sense now. I was not surprised because I always felt different, Snell later shared. It just made my whole life make so much sense. His story isn't just one of stats or shooting streaks. It's a reminder that embracing who you are can unlock a different kind of greatness, one that doesn't shout but quietly changes the game. In the 2020-21 NBA season, Tony Snell accomplished something truly remarkable, something no other player in league history had ever done. He recorded shooting splits that redefined what elite efficiency looks like. Over 50% from the field, over 50% from three-point range, and a flawless 100% from the free throw line. To be precise, he shot 51.5% overall, 56.9% from beyond the arc, and hit every single free throw he took across 47 games with the Atlanta Hawks. Zwoski wasn't a product of volume or flash. Snell didn't take 20 shots a night or command the offense. What made this feat so historic was how he did it, through patience, awareness, and calculated shot selection. Every attempt mattered. Every touch was a decision rooted in discipline and repetition. Snell's game has never been about dominance. It's been about efficiency and purpose. He wasn't the go-to scorer, but he knew his role down to the decimal. Space the floor, stay ready, hit open shots, and defend without ego. He became the glue every winning team needs but rarely celebrate. That year, the Hawks surged all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, surprising much of the league. And while names like Trae Young stole headlines, Snell was the quiet constant, doing the little things that win big games. Looking back, that season wasn't just statistically legendary. It was a masterclass in self-awareness, team-first mentality, and the power of precision. Tony Snell didn't just make shots, he made every shot count. Tony Snell's 2020-21 season statistics are a testament to his exceptional efficiency. Field goal percentage, 51.5%. Three-point percentage, 56.9%. Free throw percentage, 100%. Games played, 47. Minutes per game, 21.1. Points per game, 5.3. Rebounds per game, 2.4. Assists per game, 1.3. These numbers highlight Snell's role as a highly efficient role player. His shooting percentages, particularly from three-point range, were among the best in the league that season. Maintaining a 100% free throw percentage over the course of the season is a rare feat, underscoring his consistency and focus. While he may not have been the team's leading scorer, Snell's ability to maximize his opportunities and contribute effectively in limited minutes made him an invaluable asset to the Hawks during their successful campaign. Tony Snell's journey took a profound and unexpected turn after his young son was diagnosed with autism. As he watched his child navigate developmental challenges, Tony began recognizing familiar patterns, behaviors, preferences, emotional responses that mirrored his own. Out of both love and curiosity, he decided to get evaluated himself. The results? Life-changing. At 31 years old, after nearly a decade in the NBA, Tony Snell was officially diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. For many, that kind of news might feel overwhelming, but for Tony, it was like turning on a light in a room he had lived in his whole life. Suddenly, his world made sense. His preference for structure, his quiet demeanor, his deep, almost meditative focus on repetition and precision, these weren't quirks, they were part of who he was. Embracing his identity has transformed Tony's mission off the court. He's now using his voice not for applause, but for awareness. He speaks openly about his journey to help normalize autism discussions, especially in communities where such topics are often misunderstood or ignored. He champions early diagnosis, supportive parenting, and the belief that neurodiversity is not a limitation, it's a different kind of strength. Snell's openness is a quiet revolution. It reminds us that true success isn't just measured in stats or trophies, but in self-acceptance, courage, and the willingness to be seen as you truly are. It wasn't a game winner, it wasn't in the playoffs, but for Tony Snell, it was everything late in the 2020-21 season. With the Hawks comfortably ahead, Snell caught the ball at the wing, no defender within reach. He took his time, squared up, and drained the 3-that shot. Smooth, silent, perfect, cemented his final numbers for the year. It confirmed the impossible, a 50% field goal, 56.9% from 3, and 100% from the free throw line. The first and only season of its kind in NBA history. There was no media frenzy, no viral celebration, just Tony jogging back on defense, calm and focused, like always. But looking back now, after the autism diagnosis, that moment means more. It wasn't just a shot, it was the culmination of years of discipline, misunderstood behavior, and untold brilliance. It was the shot that proved you don't need to shout to make history. Tony Snell may never be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. He may never have a signature shoe, a championship ring, or a statue. But what he achieved, quietly, consistently, and without ever knowing the full truth about himself, is more legendary than any box score could show. In a league driven by highlights and headlines, Snell became the ultimate outlier, not because of how loud he played, but because of how purely he did. His diagnosis didn't change the story, it revealed it. Suddenly, the routines, the stillness, the laser focus, it all made sense. Tony wasn't just surviving in the NBA, he was thriving in his own way, on his own terms. He's using his platform to bring visibility to autism not as a limitation, but as a different kind of brilliance, a quiet superpower. And maybe that's what makes him special. He didn't need the world to notice him to make history. He just needed the ball, the rim, and silence. Because sometimes the most powerful legends are the ones who never say a word. If this quiet legend story moved you, let it move others too. Drop a comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that go deeper than the scoreboard. Because sometimes greatness whispers.